you to everyone who has logged in to join us today. I'm excited to welcome back a longtime section partner, Tag Marshall, who will be sharing more about their technology during today's morning webinar. We are pleased to be joined by Steve Archer. He's the general manager at Kinsale Golf Club in Naples, Florida. Steve, thank you for taking the time out of your day to be with us and share your experience with Tag Marshall and using them at your facility. We really appreciate you being on the call. Before I hand everything over to Bodo and get the webinar actually kicked off, I wanted to just give everybody a quick reminder. You will be receiving PDR credits for attending today's session, and I will post those in the coming days, most likely beginning of next week. So just know that those are going to show up in your systems. So thank you again for being here, and we really hope that you enjoy the webinar. So Bodo, over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And a big thank you to you and your fantastic team at the South Florida section. It's a bit nostalgic for me working with you guys because you were our very first section partner and you did such a great job in helping us that we are now partnered with, I think, 18 other sections.
That's awesome.
You set the benchmark, and always a pleasure to work with. And thanks for all that you do to grow the game and keep everyone on board. Yeah, very excited to have Steve Archer with us. Steve, how are you this morning?
I'm well, I hope you are. Thanks for the opportunity to join you. And Taylor, thank you for all your help.
Yeah, 100%. And also thanks everyone for taking the time out of your hopefully no longer quite as busy days. A lot of you obviously in the Florida area, but we do have some Northeast participants, if I'm not mistaken. So thanks for joining our expert session, Pace of Play and Member Accountability, Optimization Tech and Data at Kinsale Golf Course. What I would love to do first is just learn about Kinsale and also Steve about your journey and how you got to be at the helm of such a fantastic operation.
Well, you're very kind to say that. I've been at Kinsale just a little over about a year now. The project to Gil Hance and Jim Wagner design here in Naples, Florida. The golf course itself is unique to the area. It's more of a link style golf course, and it's really a tip of the cap to old age architecture. Seth Rayner, McDonald has a lot of those characteristics and features, whether it be bunkering or green complexes. So we're excited about it. We're just started really to get underway. We had a soft opening this past November, and our season is really coming to a close here as most folks make their way back up to their northern facility, if you will. So we have 250 members here at Kinsale. So we're blessed with a small membership. It's walking only to a large degree. We do have some medical carts at the club, but it's really primarily a walking golf course that's designed that way, Bodo, to be honest. So fully recognize that may be different than some of the experiences of those on the call. So I'm going to try and share my experience with Tag Marshall here at Kinsale and how we use it and apply it. But I know you'll have some insight too, how others might be able to use it at their facility that may not have, they have a larger membership or a lot more play than we do. So interested to hear all the perspectives.
Yeah, I know that a few of your neighbors down in the area of Forest Glen and the quarry that I've gone to visit are very different, right? And I also know how pristine the coastline is just a few hundred yards away from you. So it's a really beautiful spot. But Steve, tell us a little bit about your journey in golf and how you got the nod to open up a brand new facility.
Yeah, I've been very, very fortunate. When I got out of school, out of college, I Didn't exactly know what I wanted to do with my career, and was fortunate enough to take lessons from an outstanding head professional in the Northeast. His name's David Glenz. He was in the New Jersey section, so my journey started in the New Jersey section of the PGA. I finished my apprenticeship up at Oakmont Country Club in Pittsburgh for working for Mr. Ford there for a number of years, and then had an opportunity to open a club in Vero Beach, Florida, for the folks that own the Dodgers, the baseball team. They used to spring train in Vero Beach for years and years. They no longer do so, but they had an affiliation with Vero and Vero Beach, and so I had the opportunity to open a club there. And from there, I took a position at Frederica Golf Club at Sea Island, Georgia, and helped open up that facility as well. Then the last 10 years, I've been at a club in Capital City in Atlanta, Georgia. Much larger club, about 2,000 members, do 60,000 rounds of golf uh, between the two courses that were 25 miles apart. So a challenge there, not only just operationally, but with traffic and all the above. So enjoyed that opportunity, but really getting back to try to get back to my roots of I enjoy building a culture, starting a new facility, and going on that journey with our members from scratch. So that's really how I got to Kinsale.
Um, Amazing. And Atlanta and traffic seem to go hand in hand, and I know that firsthand because we have an office in Kennesaw, which you're very familiar with.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic to have so much experience and yeah, and also specifically experience with setting up a new golf course, which is both a blessing and very exciting, but also comes with challenges, right? But we'll talk a little bit more about that. But last question for you before we get going, what's the link to Kinsale and the name?
Yeah, it's a great question. Our ownership group, members at the Old Head in Ireland, have an affinity for that part of the world, and when they wanted to start the facility here, that's the name that came to mind. It seemed to coincide with the style of golf that Jim and Gil were designing here, and so that's really the origin of the name. Our logo is sort of some eagle feathers, if you will. And during the permitting process, there was some eagle's nests on the property that proved to be a little bit of a challenge in the permitting process. So it's a little bit of an homage to the eagles that were on the property while we were getting permitted and the challenges that went to it. So yeah, we're excited to get going. It's a fun golf course, and looking forward to seeing it grow the next few years.
And no doubt it will. You'll be happy to hear that. Yeah, we also partner with the Old Head course down in Kinsale, another beautiful part of the world, and it should certainly be on your list if you ever go play over in Ireland. All right. Thank you so much for the wonderful intro. A little bit of an introduction to Tag Marshall, to those of you who don't know. Yeah, my name is Boris Sieber. I'm one of the co-founders. I'm a German, born and raised, as you can probably hear with my exotic accent. And we really came into the business of golf to initially solve a problem, and that was how can we make it faster, right? Because as a player, pace of play is always on your mind. It's not on your mind if things go well, and it's very much on your mind if they don't, right? So it's an experience breaker. But we very quickly realized that there is so much more value that we can deliver when it comes to providing line of sight and real deep data insights to many, many operators. And we're very blessed to work with some of the very best clubs out there, including your Pinehursts, the the Valhalla, where they hosted the PGA Champs just a year ago. It's very exciting that we're already back there in the season next week. And Roy Portrush hosting the Open Championship, and all the way to the old course at St Andrews, and they know a thing or two about golf, right? Seeing that they've done it for 400 years, but it's awesome to see that even this deemed facility, as they are turning to technology and getting amazing results with it. But the majority of our partners are really middle of the road, daily fee and private clubs, and obviously there's 700 of those, right? As much as we love working with major hosts, that is really where we make the biggest difference, especially because they're more resource constraints operators. But it's great to learn from the best always. Okay, so before we well, as we kick off, I would love to include the crowd a little bit here. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll make sure that it's insightful. I'm going to ask you all the same question, and I'll also ask Steve the question. So understanding the key player experience factors, if you're looking at this list here on the right, what are the top 3 factors that players want you to get right? What would you focus on if you had to pick 3 and say, if I get this right, then I'm successful for my players? I'm going to launch a poll, and Steve, how would you answer that question?
Well, thanks for the opportunity to put me on the spot here. But I would say, just looking at the list, a lot of people are concentrated on who their playing partners are. Who's my group? Who am I going to play with? Well, that contributes to a lot of enjoyment. Certainly, pace of flow and play is high on the list for me. If I was a member, that's where I would go. And I would say, course conditioning or course design. But I think more players are probably leaning towards, how fast the greens are running, how the bunkers play, things like that. So I'll go with those.
Okay. Let's see what our thinking. Steve, just a word of warning here. You seem to be moving your phone. And that is making a bit of noise, just so you're aware. Okay, we have. Let me end that poll and show it quickly, so we can share the results. So, the webinar guests think that pace and flow of play, course conditioning, and playing partners are the top 3. And I think that is a very, very accurate reflection of what the golfers seem to think here. And I'm quoting a USGA survey that found, and I think they quizzed about 20,000 golfers, both private club and obviously daily fee players. And they found that course conditioning floats to the top. 82% thought that was critical. And then playing partners, exactly as you said, Steve. And number 3, pace and flow of play. So playing partners hopefully is with tee times being made available, is the players can design that and is reasonably controllable. Course conditioning, we know everyone puts a lot of effort and budget behind for good reason, and pace and flow of play in many instances is underutilized as an opportunity to really elevate the player experience, right? But a lot of operators are seeing this opportunity, and in fact, 84%, according to the NGCUA, are saying, well, it's a top 3 priority, alongside being welcoming to female players and also obviously labor challenges. So just a bit of industry insight here. Let me jump ahead to another piece of research, and this one comes from the USGA in collaboration with the University of Wisconsin. So the University of Wisconsin have got some customer experience researchers and specialists. They also run a really good golf program. And they wanted to understand with a year-long, or actually 2-year-long study, what are the experience factors in golf that matter the most and how are they defined, and is there a difference between the different tiers in golf and how people like to play the game and so on. And they found that there's 1,000 touch points in the player experience. And that's obviously a crazy number. But if you think about it, even deciding to play around making your booking, loading your clubs in the trunk. All of these are touch points, right? Driving through the gate, touch point. Walking into the clubhouse, touch point. All of these are touch points. You get to 1,000 quite quickly. And they wanted to understand which ones of them are absolutely critical in terms of the on the positive side, and which ones are detrimental if we don't get them right, and which ones float in the middle and are neutral. And what they found is that the absolute worst factors in this whole game of 1,000 touch points is other people's speed. And alongside that, corrective pace of play actions, right? Meaning somebody comes over, says, hey, you're slow, get on with it, right? So those two are already a conundrum, right? Because as a player, I don't want to be told I'm slow, but I don't like it when other people slow down ahead of me. So that's the conundrum. And on the flip side, positive ranger etiquette floated to the very top, along even higher than conditioning. And actually, a point that is not on here, but that's equally as important, is I think it's number 3 or 4, is communication and expectation setting around pace of play. Highly important. And guess why? Because the majority of players think they're quick, right? They're not the problem. So they want there to be communication expectation setting for everyone else on the golf course, so that they can play a quick round. What are your thoughts on seeing this list here, Steve?
Yeah, they're right in line with with my experience over the years. You run this fine edge of monitoring pace. It's all about presentation and how do you approach members if they are behind, or guests if they're having a slow day on the golf course. And um, I always say, many people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you make them feel. So it's important that at the end of the day that that experience is a positive one, and you make them feel good about their time at the club and their time on the golf course. So to dovetail on your point earlier, we do everything we can here to communicate expectations surrounding pace of play, and that starts even with our 4Ts. We use 4Ts here at the club for starting times. We intentionally have a wide starting time interval, and I realize that may not be the case for many, but our interval is 15 minutes at the moment, and that's a pretty wide range. But it goes in line with our golf course design. We've got a more of an intimate footprint. Greens and tees are close, and we find that 15 minutes provides that experience that our members are looking for. They feel like they're out there almost by themselves, if you will. And then spacing on the golf course is much more enjoyable and conducive. We do have a crossover hole with our design, so that helps too. When we're circling back and playing over a bunker complex to a par 3, the previous hole they played on a par 5, the spacing really helps, and it's enjoyable experience. But even from starting with our 4Ts, when you secure a starting time, say with guests, you'll get an email confirmation, and it has a list of expectations of the club, just a reminder that they can pass on to their guests, right, regarding standards at the club. But really highlighted on that is the pace of play expectation. For us here, it's 3 hours and 45 minutes or better. So we want members to communicate that to their guests ahead of time, and we want that to be first and foremost. Then also on the golf course, when they arrive and we get to the first tee, we have a starter on the tee. It's one of our assistant professionals. We'll be starting every group. It's not the same professional all the time. Obviously, we rotate, but when we do greet and talk to the members and their guests about pace, it's reiterated on the first tee how important it is to keep up with our time par, if you will, and it's a sense of pride for our members at this point. They want to beat that number. We even kid around when people ask, "Hey, what's the course record?" I often tell them, "Well, it's 3 hours and 2 minutes. It's not a score. It's a time." So everything we do, we try and reiterate the fact that, hey, it's an important part of the culture here at the club. We're trying to build that, and So we focus on a great deal.
Yeah, I love that you're taking yeah, the best score questions straight to the pace side. That's amazing. The course record, 3 hours 2 minutes. That speaks volumes. I think yeah, obviously some of you on the webinar are like 15-minute intervals. How do you run
Right.
your business, right?
Yeah.
And because obviously there's facilities where there's an 8-9 minute alternation, that's obviously much tighter. But there are economic realities, right? Because you're leaving 50% of capacity out there. But in your case, it is built into your business model and into the experience you're trying to create. And that is yeah, that certainly works. The majority of our courses run yeah, anywhere between 9 and 12 minutes. The majority around 9 or 10 minutes. So it's much tighter, and it's purely an economic and capacity question. So the game is always, how can we quality control this, right? And get as much throughput as our daytime hours will allow, right? And this is not easy. So in our estimation, a lot of clubs erring on the safe side here, but there is opportunity to optimize, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we dig into the data. But in our estimation, about $15 billion are being left on the table here with unoptimized rounds, and that is something that the yeah, golf business really can dig into, especially on those busy days, right? Creating additional capacity is very, very interesting because given the high fixed cost nature of golf, those are highly attractive dollars in the daily fee space. Or if we can have another 12 players that we can accommodate on a Saturday, that's interesting for a private club as well, right? Because tee time availability limits the amount of members we can have. So yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that. But let's jump into one last point here, and that is the player journey. And I really like how much effort you're putting into creating the framework here and having such constructive communication around it, because expectation setting is key. Because very, very often when it comes to pace of play, perception becomes reality, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit more, I'm sure. But what this research here says, it's from one of our actually new strategic partners, Players First. They do amazing work in the post-round survey and sentiment tracking space. And they found 3 things you need to do right. Players want to feel welcome. There needs to be good flow on the course, and they want to meet on-course staff, right? They're out there for 4 hours. That is your office, right? They want to meet on-course staff and be looked after. And if you do that, then restaurant visits go up and the net promoter score spikes. The net promoter score is the good old out of 10 rating. How likely are you to recommend our XYZ, whatever that is, airline, insurance, golf course, right? And a promoter is a 9 or 10. 0 is very, very negative, and most people that float between 5 and 7 don't even bother voting, right? They'll say, oh, fine. And golf gets too much of that, unfortunately. But if you get these things right, shoots to the top, people love you, they want to come back, they tell their friends. If you don't, net promoter score dies, and that's bad for business, right? Alongside that, restaurant visit goes down, right? And obviously return player loyalty, all of those things hurt. Meeting on-course staff, what is your stance on that?
On meeting on-course staff, well, we have that connection and that touch point on the first tee. Certainly when members start their round. It's also, and I'm sure I'm not. This isn't unique. Many on the call are do the same thing. So just how we use it here, I would just echo that. There are times I might be in a meeting or on a lesson tee or something where I know a member's bringing a particular guest, so it's easy for me to refer to, whether it be on my phone or in the office, where a certain member might be with a particular guest that I'd like to go reach out to and say hello to. I haven't seen them in a minute. Maybe they haven't been back to the course or the club in in a little bit of time. So, we use it that way as well. Obviously, we have a connection with Fortis, and it pulls the names over, but we use it so often to quickly identify where people are on the golf course, and that's helpful in so many different ways. Whether it's just saying hello, going to shake a hand, it might be. I'm sure we'll get into this later, but it might be for player safety reasons.
Yeah.
We want to identify where someone is on the golf course, really quickly. We also, pace wise, obviously that's the main tool. Is we want to know where they are on the course and where they are in relation to time par. And we like to know how are they trending. And so if they're getting, it looks like they're trending in a great direction, we'll just do as we're out there, say hello or drive by. But if it looks like they may be trending towards, being behind pace, we might just, our presence alone out there says that, hey, something's, they're monitoring it, they're here, they're aware of it, and so oftentimes there's nonverbal communication knows that they see out there. It's another reminder to say, hey, we're maybe we better look to where we are on the golf course. Are we on pace? Are we not? And the other thing too, I this is a sidebar, but oftentimes for food and beverage sales, or there people are arriving to the halfway house. It's easy for someone to see, hey, recognize who's my next group, who all's in the group, and so they can have that name recognition. Everyone wants to be called by their first name, and we got guest names in there as well. So when you address a first time member or first time guest to the club, and by name, it makes them feel special, and that recognition goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that given that we're digging into the day-to-day at Kinsale already, I'm going to just jump ahead because you're talking about some specifics here in terms of, this is what the Tag Marshal backend looks like. Here's a live map of what happens out at Kinsale. This is not live right now. Otherwise, Steve would be jumping off the call and looking at group number 30.
Yeah, this is giving me heartburn here looking at this.
I know, but I think the key is, and you heard him say that there's an integration with Fortis, and that feeds the player names, and then those get assigned to the trackers that are out on the golf course, and in this case they go with the caddies, and then you know exactly who's who, right? And we obviously have 20 odd integrations now, so there really isn't the T sheet that we can't talk to. And from our point of view, any good system needs to do two things. It needs to make your lives easier, right? And make sure that you can be more efficient. And it needs to talk to other systems that you have in place, right? Because otherwise, if systems work in a silo, they don't really add the value that they should. So we put a lot of effort into these API-based integrations. Steve was talking about knowing where everyone is, so great. And then he also said, hey, if we're out there and we see that there's a green group, and you can see these green groups, they're smaller, they're good for pace, let's just go shake a hand and make them feel good about their round. But we want to know where the problem groups are. Tell us a bit how the color logic works for you. And also one more question, out of how big is your staff that looks after golfers, and how many of them are dialed into the system?
Yeah, it's great points all around. We've got 5 assistant professionals. They're seasonal. We're a seasonal club. They'll head up north in the summertime, but so we've got a group, and they're all dialed in on the system, and our outside operations are as well. And we do have iPads for our food and beverage folks too, so they can tell where people are. So we've got many eyes on where people are on the golf course throughout the day. The system, Bodo mentioned it, that, if you're in green, I apologize if many of you know the system, and I'm covering ground that you already know. But for those of you that don't, if you're in green, you're doing great. You're on pace or under pace. Yellow, orange and red are those that are a little bit behind pace, and then the purple is those that are really delaying. delaying the course of action, right? So it says up in the corner there, they're delaying other groups behind them. So our whole intention of using this, we really wanted, being a caddy facility and walking, we wanted a way to track our folks, and we want to cut any issues off prior to becoming a real problem. So, we use it. We look at it a lot. We use it if members start to get positive time par numbers. They're slower than pace. We will make a trip out there to check in and say hello, and just remind folks that they're a little bit out of position on the golf course. And we try and use, I don't think it's any secret, but everyone is doing the same, but we try and use elevated language. I'll use an example. When I go to Chick-fil-A, and if you can look at me, I eat there often, but I would say when I go there, the experience is great. The elevated language they use, my pleasure, may I refresh your beverage, and these are simple things, but they go a long way, as opposed to hearing that, you're slow. Come on, guys, pick it up. It's the presentation and how you make them feel. So we focus on those aspects of dealing with the members, and how we handle it. People remember those, rather than you get into an awkward situation with a member if the word slow or things like that. Come on, guys, pick it up. So we're very conscious about the use of that, and how we speak and address the members in these areas. But this if I was looking at this, it would give me heartburn, every day if we were in this position. But we're blessed, and I understand we're fortunate to have established this right from the start, Bodo. Okay, we were looking for a partner, and we found a great one with you all to help us with this. It's such a big part of our culture and what we're trying to create here. So we use it. It's invaluable to us, each and every day. I mentioned earlier that I was at Capital City Club in Atlanta. We had two golf courses, 25 miles apart, 2,000 members, 60,000 plus rounds of golf. The tee time interval wasn't 15 minutes. You're trying to maximize access to the golf course. Of course, is really so. Pace of play was critical there. I wish that we had this system in place when I was there. We did have some pace technology on some golf carts there, and I won't mention the vendor. They're great, but it didn't provide the information we needed or we wanted as nearly as well as what Tag Marshall does. But for instance, I would say, and Bodo, stop me if I'm getting off track here, but I would say at my previous facility, we had some folks that I would say were deliberate. They were chronic, slow players, deliberate. And we'd go into golf committee meetings and tell the committee about these folks, and they wanted data. They didn't want to send a letter to a member without data or anything backing it up. So, with this system, Bodo can go into it a little bit more, but we can track a member's round if they played 30 rounds of golf here, we can say, how are they playing over the course of those 30 rounds? Where do they go? How can we help them improve their pace if they're chronically slow? And touch on that, Bodo, if you don't mind.
You were raising so many great points here, and just starting from the top, I think having that line of sight, and especially you mentioned you manage two courses 20 miles apart. How would you know what's happening on course B if you're at course A, right? As a manager, and the fun part about this is that we've had actually one of the I think it was one of the North Florida section partners of ours. He said, I was on holiday in Ireland and I checked in on my golf course back home in Serenoa, right? And I gave the guys a call, hey, what's happening on hole 8, right? So for you to have line of sight across, or that peace of mind when you're off site is obviously huge. And then I want to just also pause for a second here, because I can't tell you how important it is and to you it's second nature, but it's not nearly enough evangelized. That positive ranger etiquette. There are two things that I would suggest and recommend all of you to consider as takeaways, whether you have technology or not, right? And the first one is, do you really need to call that role ranger or marshal, right? Because even the role is not well liked. It immediately puts the players in a defensive stance, right? If they play assistants, they're here to assist. Some courses call them course ambassadors. Like, be inventive, right? Position this, and then never, never, ever mention slow, even if it's obvious and blatant. But players will fight you, and they can't compute it. And because it's like you have a low IQ, right? You are not going to accept that. But if you tell them, hey, you are half a hole out of position, please can you help us get back in position, or use language like this, it's very easy for them to see. Oh yeah, right, sure, I'll help. I'll catch up, not a problem, right? And obviously, if you have data, like Steve said, show this on an iPad. Here's what the map says. Then it's no longer a case of he said, she said, perception. But where were you when I had to wait earlier? It's very, very obvious. And sometimes you need to have a post-round conversation. So our system has what is called a track map. So every single round gets tracked and recorded, and then you know everything that happened, every interaction that was had of your staff. They need to log it, with their geofence breaches, anything that happened is a history, and then you have that data to have these conversations, and we go a little bit further. In that, and that's what Steve is, I think, getting to. Like, we want to understand the profile of the players so that over time we can then appropriately manage that. And we've blacked out, we're very kind to you here, Steve. We blacked out the names here, right? But you would immediately see this is what a slower member looks like, this is what a quicker member looks like, and it's when do they play, what tee times, over time, what percentage is delayer, delayed, slow, or on pace. And then you have this information, and it takes 1 second to pull that report. So if you ever need to have that conversation, you can have it, but also obviously report up. Yeah, what is your thinking here with regards to maybe now end of season? You might want to look through that. Anecdotally, you probably know, but how do you think this can be helpful to manage and also have these conversations?
Yeah, I think it's so helpful to have the information on hand, and we're really trying to create a relationship with a member that to enhance their experience. So to your point, the word slow or never comes up, or it's more how do you start that conversation with a member to help them improve their pace of play, and have a better experience, and have those that are playing with him or her a better experience. We might use this information, and we do. So we know everybody on the call probably knows members at their club that have, that are probably more deliberate than others, or they what have you. So we will look at this at times in our weekly games or choose up games. We probably won't pair two members together that have a slower profile. We'll do our best to put them with some faster players. It helps a little bit in terms of even just as granular as a choose up game on a Wednesday morning. Let's not put two or three folks that are in a if it's a random choose up game, it's not so random sometimes, right? So we'll have some faster players along with that player that is maybe closer or just above time par, and that just doing things like that, we've seen improvement with folks over time when sometimes people just don't know that they don't know that they're telling stories on the tee or the green, and they're just not ready to play golf. And so we really just try and preach a culture of play ready golf. And when you put people together that are faster than others, a lot of people get it, and they start to pick up their pace, and that becomes ingrained. And it's really the useful tool there. And then the data, as I said, when I was at Capital City, we had a board, a golf committee, and they were very hesitant to send out any letter without data, without the information behind it, particular days, particular rounds, uh, average over a wide period. So those conversations amongst either a golf committee member or myself and a member proved to be incredibly helpful. That, here's the information I can show you. This is how I think we can help you improve, or help us. Together we can improve. It's a really an invaluable tool to have this information, and I know we don't use the system to its fullest. I wish we, and I'm looking forward to getting to know it better, and really using it to its fullest extent. But the pieces we use are just great for us.
Um, Thanks, Steve, for the kind words. And I know that the results that you're achieving are by design, right? And it takes some operational discipline, and you've really put that in place. But I want to backtrack a little bit, because you said, hey, how lucky was I that I could put this system in place from day one, right? And so some of you may be asking, well, our club's been going for 40 years, and there's very entrenched ways in which we do things. How do I bring change like this, right? So let me actually jump back a little bit, if you don't mind, and you might get dizzy here, but there are obviously system options that we have available for the full range of the market, right? So we can hide a tracker in your golf cart if that is appropriate. That gives you data on where this cart is, and we can now also cart control that, or there can be a buzzer if somebody goes into a geofence, because we know that, especially Florida, to keep your conditions great in that non-growing period is a tough ask on your greenkeeping staff, right? So if you can protect the turf, that is certainly a consideration. And then at some facilities, having a screen that can interact with the players and also automate some of these updates on pace and their status, and obviously that's where the backend that we're using, where Steve spoke about the colors, we know exactly who's a delayer, we know exactly who's delayed, but we also know groups that are fast, right? So it's not just red or green simple grid. There's lots of dynamic variables that we look at. For instance, how early in the round are you starting to drop off, right? Or because if you're 5 minutes off at hole 5, you're going to become a big problem if you don't catch it. Also, how many groups are you impacting, right? Sometimes you might be 5 minutes off, but nobody's behind you. There's a gap. Well, we're not going to chase you. But if you're impacting 2 or 3 groups behind you and they're held up and they have to wait, then we need to know accurately where do we need to go and have a conversation. But the system automates this, right? The players get the exact same information, and they would know you are now a delayer and you're 7 minutes out of position. So that's helpful. And then obviously we have, and this is what's in play at Kinsale, we have sort of trackers that go with the caddies, or go in a golf bag, so we can really cover the full spectrum. And also from a cart point of view, we're completely agnostic. So even if you have private carts, which at the quarry, for instance, there's probably 200 private carts. They're all sorts, right? Generations, types, and it's not easy to get a system that can catch all of that. But yeah, we can. And then the question is, how do you get it started, right? Steve, what do you think some of the barriers might be if you're starting this, some like out of nowhere, and how do you get this into the member base? What do you think some of the barriers would you expect from the members or the establishment, if you will? And then I can give a bit of insight as to what I've seen working.
Yeah, I guess I'm speculating here on this because I haven't had the opportunity to implement it at a different facility. But I would guess that members would, especially if it's a real estate community, or there's private car, it's a neighborhood, I would guess, and you've got private carts. They might not be as welcoming to putting a tracker in there, because you can track where they are when they're not at the golf course. So they may be that may be a concern for a member or not. But the others might just be it's something new, and people are different to change. At times you're just they're not as open to having somebody watch them when they play golf, or keeping track of where they are. I you know it, my counter to that would be the exact opposite of, it's here to help you, and it's here to help everybody enjoy the day. Um, you know, I think one of the things that we all do at every club is members are looking for a cocktail or a drink, right?
Mhm.
They might call in, it's an airstrike. We call this, so we know where they are in the golf course. We know that you're trying to do something nice for them, and that every few holes or something you want to, they're looking for a refreshment, or you just want to check in. Weather is coming. We use it for that too. When we know weather is coming in, we know where people are in the golf course, and being a walking only, we'll position carts at the four corners or the corners of the property that we know, when the horn goes off, we can easily just start picking people up and bringing them back into the facility safely. So I try and counter some of these points that they may have, and I don't know if I'm answering your question very well at all, but really, I don't know what aside from just the monitoring aspect, what are your thoughts? Why would you think I know it's going to be a phased approach, and you may not take
Sure.
everything in
Yeah.
all at
No,
one
I
time.
think
You can just do
um,
some of this and introduce it over time.
you're absolutely right. It's how members tick, right? And you also know that uh, it's a fine balance between, is it a democracy, right? Or does it have to be consensus or consent, right? Uh, and sometimes you have to just push change a little bit. But you one of the concerns, funny enough, also raised in the comments here. What about tracking of the carts when players are not on the golf course? Because the members might be sensitive to that, right? Don't you, big brother, watch me, even though their phone is being watched by Google, right? So they're already being tracked, and they're okay with that. But the question is, who can see that, right? So there's a simple solution to that. So our system only tracks you if you're on the golf course. So there's a zoning that happens, including obviously geofencing. And then when you're on a golf course, you appear, and when you're off the golf course, you're off, right? So we can see you, and that is how you become part of that ecosystem. There is a benefit to you, obviously, as a player, right? So firstly, what we've seen clubs do is start with what you can control, and very often that's your own fleet, right? Let's go there first and show and prove the value. And then the players very quickly yeah, do away with the fear of the new, right? And yeah, use the opportunities where, hey, there's course damage, everyone's upset. Okay, if we had the system, we could control that better. And also, if there's you know, a pace issue on a Saturday, and the complaints are piling in. Well, if we had a system, we could really get on top of this, right? So use these opportunities to seed, but start with what you can control, and then also give the members the option. And then over time, you can start catching the laggards by saying, hey, the trail fees are going up because we cannot control this. So we have to charge you a max rate for trail fees. If you get the tracker, we will see more what your actual usage is, and then it's a more reasonable fee, whatever the case might be. Right? So you can look at putting a bit of pressure on over time, but you doing a phased approach is easy. And start with what you can control, and you'll be surprised how many of the members, if positioned right, actually want it from the get-go, right? And then slowly but surely you're working through uh, the barriers, and then you've got 5 members left. And some clubs saying, well, if you're not coming on board, we can't allow you to play with your private card. You have to get one of our cards because it's on the map, right? And so we've seen a lot of courses do find phased ways, and some have just eventually just blanket approached us and says, look, if you want to play with your card, this is how you got to do it. And then we'll put a tracker in. The quarry has been successful with that, for instance. They're not far from you guys, but it is a huge challenge, but something that we have overcome, yeah, multiple times. The biggest hurdle is to not get started, right? Because everybody wins if you have, including service levels going up, course conditioning gets protected, pace of play improves. It's a win-win for everybody, and it makes the core staff's life so much easier. Steve, I think you made some great points. I'm mindful of our time, and I need to be a good pace warden here and keep us moving. So you spoke about the data, right? So we have got some data from Kinsale here that our customer success agent, I think for you guys, that's Jack, he's from our Atlanta office, has prepared. And yeah, congrats to you and the team. Your average round time this season was, across everything that you've played, 3 hours 40 minutes and 5 seconds versus your 3:45 goal time. So you're pretty nicely dialed in. And this, again, this is by design, right? But some of the things that we can see here is that your early tee time starting quicker at 3:20, that's 20 minutes down, and then your 11, 12 o'clock is round about the 3:45. You don't really go over that, which is great. And then also your usage, we can see that, and your day of week, how does that play in terms of group tracking and also the pace performance. So you can really get some insight here in terms of when do we need to pay attention, and also where are opportunities for us to potentially, if your mornings run so nicely, maybe you can consider tightening your intervals and freeing up another tee time. That may not be right for you, but there's a lot of courses where that's actually critical, right? How can we free up more capacity safely? Yeah, this is what this looks like in our analytics hub. So you can see, you can dial into an individual day and look at every tee time that was played. What was the goal time that was set? We can vary the goal times as the days happen. Or if you have a tournament, you can say, hey, we're going to play a bit more lenient goal time today. So that can be set up in the system. And then we can also track the hole by hole run time. And then we get this little pace style down here where we can see who is faster on this day than pace by how many minutes, and then who's on pace and who's slightly behind and who's been real slow. So this is a fast day, 3:33. Quick day at the office here, and you can see how many of the players have been assigned, because we always advocate assign those players. So that's a quick view of that back-end data. Maybe over to you, Steve, again, because you can also look at a week or a month or the season, right? How is this useful to you in terms of communication with the member base, but also with the ownership?
Sorry, Bodo. Say that one more time. The question I didn't quite hear. Sorry.
No problem. How is having this data and access to it useful to you when it comes to communication with the member base, but also potentially ownership and so on?
Yeah, well, it's interesting when you look at the data and you drill it down, you see some of the longer times of round times. They very much coincide with some of our restrictions on guest play and when that happens. So it may be a situation where, and we may extend member play a little bit deeper into the morning or something like that to provide, as you mentioned, provide more access. Maybe open up a tee time or two early to allow more members to play, and the members are. If I would venture to say that 4 members are going to play quicker than a member with 3 guests. Particularly they know the golf course, they understand the culture of the club or what we're trying to do, so they're going to be quicker than some. So the information isn't all that surprising in the fact that it does really surround. It mirrors really what the restrictions are at the golf course. So we may want to do exactly what you said. Open up a little bit more time early in the morning. That may not produce, and it's really not the goal, but economic impact. But in some cases, it very well might, and that could be critical in your discussions with ownership. I'd like to. I think anytime I've ever gone to an owner or a club or a board to say, here's what I think is happening, and here's the data to back it up, and here is a way we can be more efficient, create more revenue. How could that ever be a bad thing, And so I think it's just what you're doing and what the information we get and provide is makes us look smarter. And in my case, I need all the help I can get. And with membership and ownership, I want to make sure that we're providing great value for not only the members, but the trust in the ownership is there too, because you got the data to back it up.
Yeah, we also often hear that when it comes to holding your staff accountable and also breeding a culture of excellence and competency, it's so helpful to have the data and say, hey, here's where we got it wrong. This is what we can do to do it better, and have that based on data. So yeah, just 2 or 3 more slides to look at. And I'd also encourage any questions, if you have them, shoot them through in the chat or Q&A. I would be happy to answer. So the season's pace distribution, which is how many groups are on pace, slow, delayed, and a delayer looks like this. And that is despite you coming through 5 minutes faster than your goal time. There is a bit of work that you can do, obviously, and being proactive around the delayers. But sometimes, like you mentioned, you might reallocate tea times a bit more appropriately, and that can free up opportunities. And you can analyze these delayer groups. What's the guest percentage here, right? And is this something we need to then pay more attention to, right? So this is where things get interesting from an analysis point of view. And I can tell you, if you didn't put so much effort into this, the delayer portion might be 20%. The delayed portion might be 40-50% of your T sheet, right? So half of your rounds are impacted by just a handful of players, and that's what happens if there's no management. And this is when there's a potentially negative culture, and that perception then often gets heightened and exaggerated, right? So it's really difficult to catch that without data. And the distribution shows that there's a lot of fast play too, right? So that might be your twosomes or member groups, what have you. And something that we didn't mention, but sometimes a group might say, hey, like these guys in front of us, they're so slow and we're having to wait. Well, actually, you are too quick, right? And that might be because you're a twosome or you know the course so well. And for your staff then to know, hey, these guys in front of you are perfectly compliant, maybe you need to just slow down a little bit, let me grab your drink, and then we'll get you on your way again. Just give them 3 or 4 minutes, right? But having this conversation, if without data, is difficult, right? And then play perception might fill in the blanks here. One of the things that we mentioned is the whole-by-whole runtime analysis, and looking at also where the wait times, right? Is it on the tee box? Is it in the fairway? And the system dials in really accurately here over time. And again, as we're saying, it's all incremental, right? If 3 of your holes are running 3 or 4 minutes over where they should be, how can we tighten the setup a little bit? Or how can we, sometimes you need to do things that are that free up time for a difficult hole, right? You might make a hole a bit more difficult ahead of a hole that is causing choke points, so that you can free up time for that next hole. So, but how would you know if you don't have the data? And the nice thing is, once you make a change, you can then test it, and the data will show you the results. And sometimes it's as simple as choosing an easier pin placement more often if you can, or remove that one bush, right? Or make the rough a little bit shorter on this side. So little things like that, run the data through them and keep incrementally improving. I need to keep us on pace here, Steve, and it's been super insightful. But the last question, and this is not an obvious one in your case because the technology is very backroom, right? It's not in the players' faces. They don't interact with it unless you show them. But what's the member response been to the tech, or rather to what you're providing to them with the tech?
It's a great question, and the response has been terrific. Truthfully, many of our members didn't know we had the system, and the caddies were carrying a transponder in their bib. And then after a while, people would say, well, how do you know we're behind or what have you? And we said, well, we've got you on we've got you on tag marshal here. We understand where these, you're above time par, or you're playing too quick, or what have you. And the response has been overwhelmingly positive. And truthfully, and it sounds like a commercial for you all, but they say, I need to take this technology back to my course, another course that I play at, another club, because we could really benefit from this. And I like the way how this is working here at the club. We do something like when player assistance, if a group is getting behind, and they're out of position, we come out with some golf carts, 6-seater golf carts, and we have the players and the caddy ride on the carts, and we just assist them to get back into position. And we might do that a time or two throughout the day, and they actually are proud of the fact that, hey, look, we're out there, we're monitoring it, and they sometimes, if it's a hot day, they really enjoy the ride too. But in the end, I think the overall member response has been fantastic.
Yeah, that's brilliant to hear, and that's what matters most, right? So I know that one of your former pit stops was Oakmont, and they do that exact same system, right? They shuttle
Yeah.
players if they're falling critically behind, and they're very kind about it, but they know that, as do you have a responsibility towards the whole field, right? And sometimes this is what's needed, right? Or somebody goes in 4 caddies a little bit, whatever the case is. But it's all about getting it right for the majority of the field. And if you know accurately, these are the 2 groups that we need to keep an eye on and help out. That's when you're not out there wasting time looking for gaps and problems and guessing, right? So fantastic to have that feedback. And obviously, if you've got a screen in play, there's a lot of automation, and the players interact with the system directly all the way through to food ordering or running Golf Genius, live scoring on it. All of those things are nice play amenities, but you playing such pure and beautiful caddy-based golf, and obviously this is a wonderful way also to get technology in the mix.
I would just a real quick. I won't take too much time on this, but in my previous club, mostly more carts than caddies, I would say. And a lot of the previous system we used, I won't use the name again, but it would have on the golf cart, it would say that you're behind your round time and how much you were behind pace. And it was interesting. It was a source of frustration for many to see that ticker keep rising and keep rising. They were waiting. They weren't the source of the delay, but they could just see this time, continuing to elevate how they were behind pace. And they didn't want to see that. They knew they were being delayed, but it almost added to. So we've got the behind the scenes approach here, and we're addressed the problem where it really needs to be addressed. So it's an interesting point to say I like the screenless option personally, because not everyone is seeing it and getting frustrated the more and more they play.
Yeah, but Steve, to your point, we know this is an issue, and it stems purely from the fact if you have a simple grid-based approach to pace, but if you're using relative variables, then you can really show the players you are a bit slow, but it's not your fault. You're delayed, right?
Correct.
We're giving you that orange band, and then they know, hey, play assistants just cruised past us and told us, hey, I know that you're that groups 2 ahead is a bit out of position. I'm going to tell them to get back in position, then just make sure that you catch up with them, or they shoot out a message on the two-way screen. Problem solved. So we know that in this instance that you're describing is that the players start to ignore it, right? They're like, it's incorrect data, we're going to ignore it. And then on the day where it is correct and their group is out of position, they're like, they don't know, right? So this is where accurate data is obviously key, and that the players need to trust it, right? And one of the things that comes in play, and I just want to close out quickly, is that your team needs to have competency, and they need to learn how to use the program and also use these strategies. And I really love how you call it elevated language, for instance. All of those things we've wrapped up into a training program that's online. so that everyone at the course, and people need to know different things. If you're a starter, you need to use the system slightly differently to if you're in food and beverage, or if you're a director of golf, that you need to probably have a more holistic view of it. And we've got these online training journeys, so it's really easy. Half an hour, an hour will get you going, and then you can go deeper as you progress. And we found that's really helpful because for us, obviously, the more you know about the program, the better value you can extract from it, and the more we make your life easier, which is our job. I want to thank you, Steve, for the really insightful session. I know you have a bit of a lower period ahead. Are you going to continue playing throughout the hot season, or are you taking a break?
The course will take a break. We've got some summer projects to do, and this being our first summer closed, we're looking for. We've got a number of projects to complete, and not only agronomic, but internally as well, moving into a new clubhouse and things like that. So, just want to thank you and your team and Tag Marshall for, really making us better as golf professionals and giving us the tools to succeed. We appreciate it. This is my first experience with Tag Marshall the last year or so. So I can't tell you how much it's helped us, and it's been so insightful and valuable. And you make us look good, which is in my case hard to do. So thank you.
Steve, you're very funny. You're clearly good at your job. And please tell the ownership that it's about time they take you out of this container that you're in, right?
That's right. We were talking offline. I've been doing this a long time. This is my I've been involved in some startup clubs. I think it's my 12th or 13th year in a trailer. So I am. I guess my friends tease me that I'm a trailer pro. So that may be my calling. I don't know. But.
That is very funny. But your friends also owe you a drink because you have just given them a PDR credit. And on this note, our team and the South Florida PGA will share the information, and make sure that you get your credits assigned. We hope that this was insightful. If you have any further questions, here's our team that you can chat to. Ashley Bryant is your local partnership development manager, and David Hamilton is up in Charleston, often in Augusta too. Last question, Steve, who's going to take the PGA Champs next week?
That's a great question. I mean, Rory's on a roll. He loves playing at Quail Hollow. It's going to be tough to beat, and then Scotty Scheffler's coming in form. So I don't know. I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go Scotty Scheffler.
I would agree with you because I bet on Rory for the Masters, and for the first time it didn't let me down, but I'm not going to do it twice. All right, Steve, thank you so much. It's been great. And also, again, thanks to the South Florida PGA for your support and for all that you do for golf. And thank you, everyone, for your time. It's been wonderful. Bye-bye.
Thank you.